Antoine Griezmann is one of the most difficult players of his generation to properly place in football history. When people debate the greatest forwards of the modern era, his name rarely comes up first. Yet when you actually look at what he has achieved, it becomes almost impossible to leave him out. He is a World Cup winner, a European Championship Golden Boot winner, a Champions League finalist, and a Ballon d'Or podium finisher. For a brief period in 2016 and 2018, he was genuinely considered the third best player in the world behind only Lionel Messi and Cristiano Ronaldo. And yet somehow, he does not carry the same aura in public memory. Part of the reason is that Griezmann's career has never been straightforward. It does not follow the typical script of a generational superstar who dominates from a young age and ascends in a straight line toward greatness. In fact, for a long time, he was not even supposed to make it. As a child, Griezmann was small and physically underdeveloped. In youth football, especially within elite academies, physical maturity often determines opportunity. Coaches look for players who can dominate immediately, who can impose themselves against peers, who look ready before they actually are. Griezmann did not fit that profile. Despite having exceptional technique, balance, and football intelligence, he lacked the physical presence that youth scouts tend to prioritize. He went on trial after trial in France. Metz rejected him, Paris Saint-Germain rejected him, Lyon rejected him. Each time, the feedback was similar. Too small, not physically convincing, not ready. Behind those rejections was a father who had to repeatedly deliver the same painful message to his son. Driving long distances for opportunities that ended in disappointment, watching belief collide with reality. It is easy to forget how many promising careers end at that stage, not because of lack of talent, but because of timing and perception. The turning point came almost by accident. At the age of 14, during a relatively ordinary trial in France, a scout from Real Sociedad named Eric Olhatz happened to be present. What caught his attention was not that Griezmann stood out physically, it was that he stood out technically and mentally. He was calm in possession. His first touch was clean and mature. His movement suggested a player thinking several seconds ahead of everyone else. Real Sociedad invited him to Spain. By that point, however, his family had grown weary of false hope. His father reportedly hesitated, unsure whether he wanted to put his son through another rejection. Eventually, persistence from the Spanish club convinced them to take the risk. At just 14 years old, Griezmann moved nearly 800 miles away from home to join Real Sociedad's academy. It was not a glamorous transition. He did not immediately dominate. He struggled with the language. He was shy, reserved, and socially isolated in the beginning. For a teenager, such displacement can be overwhelming. There were moments when it appeared that the gamble would not pay off. At 16, he was not consistently starting in youth tournaments, and doubts resurfaced. His parents even considered bringing him back to France. But instead of collapsing under pressure, Griezmann began to evolve. He worked intensively on the parts of his game that had previously limited him. He improved defensively. He strengthened his tactical awareness. He became more complete. That transformation laid the foundation for his breakthrough. At 18 years old, preseason injuries in the senior squad gave him an unexpected opportunity with Real Sociedad's first team. He seized it. By the fifth match day, he was trusted to play full matches. By the end of the season, he had made 40 appearances and played a central role in helping Sociedad earn promotion to La Liga. Transitioning to Spain's top division is often brutal for newly promoted sides. Sociedad narrowly avoided relegation in their first season back. But even at that stage, Griezmann's influence was visible. When he was available, the team had structure and creativity. When he was injured the following season, Sociedad struggled significantly. Upon his return, results improved almost immediately. It was an early sign of something that would define his career. He was not just productive, he was stabilizing. His move to Atlético Madrid marked the true acceleration of his development. Under Diego Simeone, Griezmann became far more than a goal scorer. Simeone's system demanded discipline, sacrifice, and tactical intelligence from every forward. Griezmann adapted seamlessly. He pressed relentlessly. He dropped into midfield to link play. He defended from the front. And when opportunities appeared, he finished with precision. The 2015-16 season elevated him to global recognition. Atletico reached the Champions League final. France reached the final of Euro 2016 on home soil, and Griezmann finished the tournament as top scorer. That year, he finished third in the Ballon d'Or rankings, behind only Messi and Ronaldo. For a brief but undeniable period, he was positioned as the leading figure of the generation just below the two giants who dominated the era. In 2018, he completed the achievement that defines legacies. He won the World Cup with France, delivering key performances throughout the tournament and earning Man of the Match in the final. That same year, he also won the Europa League with Atlético Madrid. In terms of silverware and individual impact, it was the peak of his career. Yet his story did not remain uncomplicated. He lost major finals as well. The Champions League final with Atletico, the Euro 2016 final with France, and later the 2022 World Cup final against Argentina. His high-profile move to Barcelona in 2019 strained his relationship with Atletico supporters and placed him in a system that never fully maximized his strengths, especially alongside Lionel Messi. Public perception began to shift. What makes Griezmann uniquely difficult to categorize is his adaptability. With Atletico in his second spell, he evolved into a hybrid forward midfielder, often dropping deep to orchestrate play. During the 2022 World Cup, Didier Deschamps used him almost as a roaming playmaker, asking him to track back, recover possession, and initiate transitions. He fulfilled that role with intelligence and discipline. Few elite forwards willingly adjust their identity so drastically for the sake of balance. Statistically, his career stands firmly among the elite. Over 300 career goals, over 100 international caps for France, multiple major international finals, sustained relevance across more than a decade at the highest level. Those are not numbers associated with a player who had only 1 or 2 good seasons, and yet he remains strangely undercelebrated. Perhaps the reason is that football culture tends to reward extremes. It glorifies pure goal scorers, flamboyant dribblers, and dominant physical presences. Griezmann is none of those in isolation. He is not the fastest, not the strongest, not the most individually dazzling. Instead, he is balanced, complete, intellectually sharp, tactically selfless. He represents a different kind of greatness, one built on resilience after rejection, on evolution after doubt, and on team-oriented excellence rather than individual spectacle. When future generations look back at this era, they will see the obvious names first. But if they look deeper, they will also find Antoine Griezmann, the player who was told he was too small, who was rejected repeatedly, who adapted again and again, and who still managed to stand on the podium of the Ballon d'Or in the most competitive era football has ever known. He may never dominate all-time debates, but his career is far too significant to be reduced to a footnote. And perhaps that is what makes him one of the most fascinating players of his generation. The following season began in a way that seemed to confirm every doubt that had ever surrounded Antoine Griezmann. Real Sociedad lost 5 of their first 9 matches, and instability quickly returned. To make matters worse, Griezmann suffered a 3-week injury at the worst possible time, leaving the team hovering dangerously close to the relegation zone. For a club that had only recently returned to La Liga and tasted Champions League football, the drop in form felt alarming. But once again, his return changed everything. When Griezmann came back, Sociedad went on one of the most extraordinary runs in the club's modern history. Over the next 23 matches, they suffered only a single defeat, a chaotic 4-3 loss at the Santiago Bernabeu, while defeating heavyweights such as Valencia, Sevilla, Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid. It was not a lucky streak built on defensive survival. It was a run fueled by attacking clarity and confidence with Griezmann at its center. By the end of the campaign, Real Sociedad had secured only their 4th ever qualification for the Champions League and their first in a decade. Griezmann had become one of the youngest players in La Liga history to reach 100 appearances. At just 22 years old, he was no longer a promising outsider. He was the symbol of the club's resurgence,